Hey, what's going on, guys? Zach Spear here with MLM Rebels, and today I want to talk to you guys about influence and creating influence and how to actually have that without being a influential person. So influence is something that can be developed, it's something that can be learned, and every skill is a teachable skill. You have to realize that. It's not something that you're born with. Some people have obviously a natural higher level of it, but regardless of where you're at, I'm going to teach you a very simple way that you can have it, okay? And this is something that I actually learned. I didn't create this, I didn't make this up, just like everything, I'm basically just regurgitating information that I've acquired over the years. So please know that I am not a genius. But when I got my last corporate job, my last corporate job before I quit and set a flame to that part of my life was an executive recruiting job. Okay, and it was corporate sales, and it was really cool. I actually had a lot of fun doing it. And it was basically high ticket sales on the phone. And so if you made one sale, it could be worth 30 grand to the company, and we would make 9-10 grand of that. So it was really cool. I worked with some of the most amazing people. That was super fun. I just hated having a job, so I just had to leave, and I felt like I had a calling on my life to leave my job, right? So I did. But while I was there, I worked in one of the largest recruiting offices that I'm aware of. Recruiting offices generally are not very big. They're usually a smaller type thing. So this was a very large one in comparison. And the guy that I worked for was a guy named Gary. And I learned a ton from this man. And he helped me in many ways. Even though I only worked there for a short period of time, I admire him and look up to him as one of my sales and communication mentors. And Gary, I don't know exactly what he makes or what he made, but I would venture to say it's many seven figures, and I would venture to say that he's living a fairly comfortable life. Okay, he's done well for himself, and he's probably in his he's probably in his 60s, I bet, and he's still going to the office every day, and he loves it. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm saying that he loves it. He loves his work, and I remember going and sitting by him and starting to learn from him for the very first time, and I remember listening to him on the phone, and he would talk on the phone, and I was like, what is it about this guy? What is it? It's just one of those things, what is it? And when I would look at the numbers, the numbers would come out, here's what each recruiter produced. Gary was always number 1 or number 2 producer in the entire company, yet he was the owner, and he worked a fourth as much as everyone else. Weird, right? Why? How is that possible? And number 1, he had a lot of contacts because he'd been in the industry so long. But number 2, he was incredibly good at influencing people. And I couldn't figure out why. Because let me tell you a little bit about Gary. Gary is one of the most quiet and back of the room, sit at the back of the room type of people I've ever met. I mean, he's incredibly smart. He's very quick. He's very quick-witted in his own mind, but very little comes out of his mouth. And he's one of those people that when walking down the street, he would rather be looking at the ground than looking up in the air or up in people's eyes. And I was always taught that influence was always about having the most power, having the most confidence, having the shoulders back, eyes in someone else's eyes. And yet Gary was the exact opposite, yet he was probably the most influential person I'd ever met. I was like, what the heck is it? What the heck is it? I remember going to my interview for the very first or second time. And I was sitting in this, this nice chair, and we were talking back and forth. And it was very much like a conversation, not like an interview. And he'd say, Zach, and he'd ask me a question. He said, Zach, what do you see yourself being in 10 years? What do you see your legacy being? And he asked me a really in-depth question. And I would sit there and I would answer. And when I was done answering, he would just sit there. And he wouldn't always look at my eyes. He would look at the floor. And he would think. He would be an obvious thought. And it felt like an eternity. But he'd finally speak. And when he spoke, it was like the ground rumbled. Why? He didn't have a deep voice. He wasn't a huge power leader. He's 5'8" with a soft voice. Why was there so much force there? It's because he was confident. And not a fake confident, not shoulders back, not eyes looking at you confident. It's just because he knew what he believed. A person with confidence is the majority, period. Case closed. He knew what he meant. He knew what he was saying. Why did he know what he was saying? Because he took the time, the necessary time, to think about it before he spoke. That's a huge lesson for me, because I'm the person that talks, and hopefully the thoughts catch up as my mouth moves. That's literally the way that I've always operated, and that's the way most salespeople and recruiters operate, that to recruit people. But actually, the best ones on the planet are the ones that think before they talk. And Gary had no problem taking as much time as he needed to think before he spoke. even in a one-on-one conversation with another human being, if you spoke to me and I wasn't, excuse me, if someone spoke to Gary and he was not ready to answer yet, he would sit there for as long as it took until he had an answer formulated, and then he would speak. And he wouldn't second guess himself because he had thought about it. When he thought about it, he knew what his answer would be, and it would be confident. A person with confidence is the majority. And I want to empower you. I want to let you know that you can think before you talk. It's okay. In fact, silence is a very, very powerful thing. One of the most powerful things you can do in communication is, instead of saying the word or it's to shut your mouth. So if you need to think about what you're saying, like, you know what, I was going through and I was watching this white Mercedes sit there, and I just love those wheels. Stupid example, but you hung on those next words. The opposite could be, man, I love that white Mercedes, and I love those wheels. Less power. So it's okay to slow down. Gather your thoughts, gather your words, then say it. Now when you say it, you have power, you have confidence. And those with confidence are the majority. So guys, I hope this helped you. If it did, I want you to comment down below. Tell me what you learned. Tell me what sets you free, right? And if you're not yet a part of the MLM Rebels group, I want you to join that. I want you to apply to be a part of it. It's a free group, but you have to apply to be in. Go ahead and click down below and go ahead and do that. Join the group, and you can start your process of actually becoming an MLM Rebel. Talk to you all soon.